page 81, at the Mishnah, 3 lines from the top of the page. The subject of the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law is the core subject for today's shi'ur, today's lecture. We have a biblical text. The Torah tells us certain mitzvot, certain commandments, and we have the disputation of what that means. Can we take it literally, or we can conceptualize in a sense of spirit, and soon you see a lot of application to a practical law. First and foremost, I'd like to share with you a text in the book of Dvarim, Deuteronomy, well-known text to this crowd, beginning of the parasha, the portion of Kitavot, chapter 26. This is the biblical commandment which we're getting close to festival of Shavuot, the festival of the week. This is the mitzvah of the first fruit. The Torah tells us, I just give you the vignette, the abbreviation, beginning of chapter 26. It will be when you enter the land that the Almighty God gives you as inheritance, and you possess it and you dwell it. This is Moses talked to the children of Israel right before he is about to die, and Joshua is going to take over the leadership, and they're going to inherit the land of Israel after possessing it. So they have the obligation to bring the production of their first fruit to the temple, meaning that you shall take of the first every fruit of the ground, that you bring it from the land to God and give it, etc. And then the text said that you should come to the Kohen, or one who is in charge there, and you make declaration, which is thanksgiving to God. I declare today before the Almighty that I have come to the land that was given to my ancestors, and the Kohen take the basket from him, and then we should say it was the Aramean that planned to destroy our ancestors, so we end up in Egypt. They subjugated us, we went out of Egypt, and we reached this land, and now we reach this land of milk and honey. I have this first fruit, and I brought the first fruit from my land. Listen again, the language. And now, behold, I brought the first fruit of the ground that you have given me, O Almighty God, and you shall lay it before God, and you shall bow down before God, etc. So the problem with that is we are talking the concept of owning the property in the land of Israel, taking the first fruit, bringing it before the temple, and give it to the Kohen. What happens if the property is not used? Let's use name, Reuven and Shimon. Shimon owns the property. Reuven purchased 2 trees or 3 trees within Shimon's property. So the question is, what exactly involved with that purchase? You're getting the 2 trees. So obviously the agreement is you're getting the produce that comes out of those trees. But how do you treat the ground? There's 2 concepts of ground. One is the entire field, which obviously belongs to Shimon. But there is another one, which is the particular estate that the tree is within that domain. For example, if the trees no longer produce a fruit, obviously the owner has the right, Shimon has the right to force Reuven to cut it, to use it for wood purposes, and to move out. Now, as far as Reuven, for example, take that produce and bring it to the temple, can he declare that this is my estate and I bring it before the Lord? And it's not just the concept of the declaration, it's the concept of ownership that is derivative, since the contract was not spelled out clearly between the 2 parties who owns what. So let's first zoom in a Mishnah. For those new students, Mishnah, it's between the 1st and the 3rd century. Gemarrah, the second part, is the 3rd, 4th, early 5th century. So the Mishnah said as follows: הקונה 2 אילנות בתוך שדה חברו. A fellow buys 2 trees in the field of someone else. The problem is, it wasn't spelled out. Here is the language of the Rashbam. He said to us, "Stama lo kana karka svivav klal." We understand that the purchase was only the trees itself. והרי הוא כמי שכנען לפירותיו, כשיבש יקרנו וילך, which means, as long as this tree produce some fruits, Reuven can take it. The moment that it's dry out, is no longer have any right, he need to cut it and move out. הרי זה לא קנה קרקע. Obviously, you cannot declare ownership of the estate just by buying the two trees. Rabbi Meir אומר קנה קרקע, Rabbi Meir hold no. The moment that the fellow acquired the trees, he acquired the ground as well. Which means, according to Rabbi Meir, if the tree is dead, Reuven, the purchaser of the tree, can plant a new one in that location. Now you see a derivative to that. Higdilo lo yeshape. So if now the tree grew, the owner of the field may not cut down their branches despite the fact that their shade damages his field. So the tree sometimes damaged, he cannot do it, he sold that right. והעולה מן הגזע שלו ומן השורשים של בעל הקרקע ואם מתו אין לו קרקע. So they said, whatever grows out of the trunk is belong to the owner of the tree. But that which grows out of the roots belong to the owner of the ground. If the tree die, the owner has no rights to the ground where the trees has stood. Second part of the Mishnah dealing with a exceeding purchase, which is 3, and soon later on you see the 3 basically change the whole status of the right over the estate. So they said kana shlosha, if one brought 3 trees, kana karka, he has acquired the ground along with them. Higdilu, if they grew, the owner of the field, yeshape, he may cut down their branches as he sold specific piece of land along with the trees, not his entire field. והעולה מן הגזע ומן השורשים שלו, and that which grows out of the trunk and out of the roots, it's his, it belongs to the owner of the trees. ואם מתו, if the trees die, the owner of the trees still has possession of the ground, יש לו קרקע, as it was sold along the trees. So, here we are with important Rambam. Rambam is the great physician, philosopher, and rabbi that lived at the late 12th century. So one of his books, it's called Sefer Kinyan, Hilchot Mechira, chapter 24. I'm reading from the Korean edition, a translation of the Rambam. If one buys 2 trees in the field belonging to another, he does not acquire the ground under them. He is entitled to use of space to collect the fruit and put down his basket in which the fruits is placed. This is the case even if this area is greater than the area of the trees. The buyer is also giving a path through the field to the trees so that he can collect the fruit. The seller may not plant undermat the trees, despite the fact that the land remains in his possession, as the fruit that falls from the trees might become soil. If the trees die, the owner brought them has no right to the land. That's basically also in the code, in Choshen Mishpat 2:16, the remark. Now, we should reflect and remember our previous pages discussion, the disputation between Rabbi Akiva and the sages. When a person is selling an estate and all of a sudden there is a unspecified well, cistern and other things, Rabbi Akiva hold that the seller of the estate selled be'ain yafa, meaning he included everything in the sale. The sages said, no, there is a compensation need to go along if there is a access needed by the buyer to go to that location. So with that, we need to discuss how that matched the previous discussion. So now we go to the Gemara, and they're bringing another source, another Mishnah that show us that this disputation is applied to another discussion, which is disputation between Chachamim and Rabbi Meir. If someone purchased 2 trees, he also purchased the land as well. So here we have a Tractate Bikurim. This is a special tractate dealing with the mitzvah of bringing the first fruits of the land. In the first chapter, in Bikurim, Mishnah number 6, they said as follows: Tznan hatam, hakonesh shnei ilanot betoch shel chavero. If someone buys 2 trees in the field of another, mevi ve'eino koreh, he brings the fruit, the first fruits, but does not recite passages of thanks to the Almighty that appears in the Torah as we read in the introduction. The idea is that the land does not belong to him, and therefore he cannot make that statement, I have brought the first of the fruit of the land which you, Almighty God, has given me. Because as we said, he just have the produce. However, not everyone goes along with this notion. Rabbi Meir omer mevi vekoreh. Rabbi Meir said, no, since now you are the one who bringing the fruit, and the fruit is part of the land, pri ha'adama, and that you have now the access, so therefore you have the right to make also the declaration. In a sense, it's very similar to what David once discussed with me, which is the difference in rights between tenant and landlord. Go the same notion that the tenants feel, I'm paying you the rent and I have partially ownership in a sense of my right to do a lot of things within the domain of the estate. So in that sense, for example, when it's come to insurance, he's responsible, etc. So since here the purchaser of the trees and the produce has this access, you can juxtapose and say that the notion of Rabbi Meir is you're making declaration of something that you pay for. It wasn't a gift. You get it and you pay for that tree, so you can say that that's my land. But anyway, we'll go to the next step, which is the statement that disputed it. אמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל, מחייב היה רבי מאיר אף בלוקח פירות מן השוק. Imagine a fellow goes to the marketplace and it's the first time he gets these fruits, no one else. So somehow it gets to the marketplace without anyone giving that fruit. So since he's the first buyer, not only one who grew up the fruits on his own tree, but someone who buy it in the marketplace, he can go to the temple, take that first fruit, and give it there and follow the same rituals. So they said, Mimai, from where do we derive this ruling? Midiktani Mishnah Yeteira, because it appears like a superfluous source, superfluous Mishnah. Mikdei de Tanale de Yesh lo karka pshita de mevi vekore. Obviously you can say that if he owns the land, you have the possession of the ground, so you know that he needs to bring the first fruit and recite this passage. So what exactly he adds here? Rabbi Meir goes to the next step that said not only if you own the tree and you bring the fruits from the tree and you make that declaration, but even you purchase it from the marketplace, which obviously it's not you in a sense of ownership, but you own now, since you purchase it in the marketplace as a first buyer, that produce that came from the land, therefore you can go ahead and bring the fruits and recite the passage of thanks. So the Gemarrah challenged that. They said if you zoom in the text in the Deuteronomy 26b, they said, Asher tavi me'artzecha. They said, which you shall bring in from your land, which means that the fruit must be produced of your land, not land that belonged to someone else. So they said, no, that verse has a different connotation, different meaning. You know what that verse is all about? It wants to emphasize that outside of the land of Israel, which is, if you are outside of the land, you are excluded. It's not part of that commandments, of that obligation. Soon you see that there are a lot of borderlines. For example, Jordan, Syria, it is part of Eretz Israel for that context. But anyway, v'haktiv admatcha. But the Torah said in Exodus 23, the choicest first fruits of your land you should bring. So the Gemara explained, Lema'utei admat ovet kochavim, to exclude the estate that belongs to idol worshipper within the land of Israel. Ve'aktiv asher natatali. But they said in Deuteronomy 26, which you, Almighty God, have given me, if you purchase the fruit, then the land on which it grew is not given to him by the Almighty. So they explain, you have to say that it was giving him money, which the money brought this fruit. So there's a big discussion among the Rishonim, what exactly need for a special pasuk, for a special verse, למעט ביקורים. It's mitzvah תלויה בארץ, it's a commandment that depends upon the land. And the question is, what exactly the meaning or the definition of mitzvah bikurim is really depend on the land and how far you go with that. By Torah law, the mitzvah of first fruits applies only in Eretz Israel. By rabbinic law, it also applies to some of the area present day, Jordan, as well as Syria. So this is the language of the Rashbam, Ilchot Bikurim chapter 2. If one brings first fruit from outside of Eretz Israel, they do not have the halachic status of the first fruit. But as we see, you have to differentiate between Torah law, that's Eretz Israel, or rabbinic law, it can go further to Jordan, part of Syria. But anyway, Mativ Rabbah. So Rabbah have here an issue with this Shmuel statement. He says, הקונה אילן אחד בתוך של חברו, מביא ואינו קורא שלא קנה קרקע דברי רבי מאיר. He says, this is a bride, this is a statement that said that a fellow buys a tree in a field that belongs to someone else. And he does not recite that passage. So the question is, how come here we see the opposite? Why? Over there we say that he did not acquire the land. But here you see that Rabbi Meir did not require to bring first fruit and recite that passage if it's raised in that estate, the one who brought. So they said Chuvta, which means is a refutation of Shmuel's opinion, because he holds that according to Rabbi Meir, even one who simply purchases fruit is obligated to bring first fruits to the Beit HaMikdash. So now the Gemara elaborates the rules of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, the sages, in their law of first fruits. He said, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Yakim Rabbi Elazar, page 81b, My Tamad Rabbi Meir be'ilan echad. What's the rationale of Rabbi Meir when someone just purchased one tree, and by purchasing one tree, you require the person to go, but not to recite the passage? So they said, "My Tamad Rabbanan b'shteinot." What's the reason of the rabbis that require that one bring the first fruit, even he's not reciting the passage because the estate is not him? Why they require the person in the first place to bring a first fruit in that situation? Because if you go by the text, Asher tavi me'artzecha, that you bring from your land, So that's the whole notion that it is yours. So Rabbi Lazar explained and said, אמר לו דבר שראשונים אמרו באותם, תשמעו לי מבית המדרש כדי לביישני. He said, what are you doing here? You try to put me down, you try to, I have no idea what's the reason, not even the earlier rabbis explained the matter. So why are you doing to me? So Marabba Mai Kushia. What's the difficulty here? Dilma Rabbi Meir Bilan Echad Sefuke Misapkali. You may say that Rabbi Meir hold that even is one tree he was uncertain. So one person purchased one tree if the buyer owns the ground or not. The sages, however, they uncertain when one individual purchased two trees, so he owns the ground or not. So because it's not clear, the owner of the tree needs to bring the first fruit to Beit HaMikdash, to temple. It might obligate it to do the mitzvah, but not to recite in the passage. So the Gemara asks, is the mayor really uncertain whether the buyer owns the ground or not? The Akatane, we learn, if you remember the page, the previous part in the Breita, they said, Lefi shelo kana karka, divrei Meir said because he's not acquired the land. So if he's not acquired the land, it's very lucid that Rabbi Meir, he did not purchase the land, period. So Eima Shema lo kana karka. You may say that it meant to say that perhaps he did not acquire the land. So it means that that's the way it should be, Shlomo said, it should be the understanding of the Breita. So the Gemara says, so you may say that it's not the concern that perhaps these fruits are not fruits for the first fruit. Bring a non-sacred food to the temple courtyard, which is absolutely prohibited. So the Gemara said the Makdishlo, you know what he does? He bring it and he consecrated them. So they said, so they need to eat the first fruit, and he cannot do so if they are consecrated. So they said, that he redeemed them. So they said, maybe they are not the first fruit, so he removes them from the obligation of Truma and tithes. So they said, that he separate Truma and tithes from the fruit because he is not clear what exactly happened. There's a big discussion among the Rishonim, Shari Yosher and others, if you talk about Be'alut Befoal, if it's really the owner at this very moment expresses his ownership or not. What exactly you meant to say when it's uncertainty. But as we said, it's above the scope of our discussion. The only thing I would like to add is the Rambam in Ilchot Bikurim chapter 4, he said if one buys two trees in a field belonging to another, he brings the first fruits of the trees to the temple but does not require the passage of thanks. Beforehand, he must consecrate the fruits for temple maintenance to ensure that he is not bringing non-sacred fruit to the temple courtyard. He also separates tithes, but giving them only to priests in case the fruits are first fruits that may be eaten only by priests. So they say, the Gemara asks a question. If that's the case, Bishlam התרומה גדולה היה הבל לכהן, מעשר שני נמי הבל לכהן, מעשר אני נמי הבל לכהן אני, אלא מעשר ראשון לוי הוא מה היה הבל, as we explained many times. So we have different form of a tithe. We have תרומה גדולה, that it's given to the high priest, and the foreign, the zarim, the alien, not allowed to eat it. The second tithe, it's a tithe that was given in the first year, the second year, the fourth year and the fifth year from the cycle of sabbatical year, the 7 years of Shemitah. A person needs to bring it to Jerusalem and eat it there. If he distance from Yerushalayim, he can redeem the money and bring it to Yerushalayim, and he eats fruits there. So that's called basically the second tithe, and everyone allows to eat it. So versus Maaser Ani, the indigent tithe, that's in the 3rd and the 6th year in that 7-year cycle, and obviously you need to bring it to a poor people, and everyone can eat it everywhere. Anyway, so they said, Ela Maaser Rishon de Levihu, so the first tithe that it's in every year, excluding the 7th year, and that's the tribe of Levi. Leman Yehivle, so to whom can he give it? A Levi may not eat first fruit. So they said the Kohen need to bring it to the priest, the Kohen. כרבי אלעזר בן עזריה לתלמוד, תרומה גדולה לכהן מעשר ראשון ללוי, דיברה ברבי עקיבא, רבי אלעזר בן עזריה, מעשר ראשון רק לכהן. So the Gemara said, ודילמה ביקורים לנו ובאו קריאה. You may say that it's the first fruit and therefore you need to recite the passage of thanks. But the owner does not recite because it's not clear, it's not certain. So they said, קריאה לא מעכבת, the recitation, it's not indispensable, which means that one can perform the mitzvah of bringing the first fruit without the recitation of that passage. The Gemara said, is that true? ולא? ואמר רבי זרע כל הראוי לבילה, אין בילה מעכבת בו, ושאינו ראוי בילה, בילה מעכבת בו. So in general, the idea is, here we talk about something that is suitable for mixing, because any mincha offering that you can combine the two, which is the oil in the meal offering. So they said that for any measure of flour that is suitable for mixing with oil and meal offering, the lack of mixing does not invalidate the meal offering, even though there is a mitzvah to mix the oil and the flour, lechatchila, the way it should be. The meal offerings is fit for sacrifice even if the oil and the flour are not mixed. So, and for any measure of flour that is not suitable for mixing with oil in a meal offering, the lack of mixing invalidates the meal offering. So that's basically lechatchila. But b'diavad, after the fact, in the high side, it's okay. So they just a quote from the Rashbam, Ilchot Maseh Korbanot, chapter 17. He said, one may not bring a meal offering that fills a vessel larger than 60 isar because the flour and the oil cannot be mixed properly. Although one can still fulfill his obligation without mixing, it must be possible in theory to mix the offering. That's basically the view of Rabbi Zera. So the Avilu Rabbi Yossi בר חנינא דאמר, בצרן ושגרן. He said that one harvested the fruits and sent them. So, meaning send them, he sent with the agent to the temple courtyard. And unfortunately, guess what happened? The agent passed away while he delivered it. ומת השליח בדרך. So here, they said, מביא ואינו קורא. So in one hand, he brings the offering, the first fruit, but he's not recite the passage of thanks. מה טעמה? דכתיב לקחת לבטח. When we quoted from Deuteronomy, they said clearly, and I'm just quoting the pasuk, Deuteronomy 26 verse 2. They said, and you shall take of the first fruit and the fruits of the ground, which you shall bring from your land, that the Lord your God gives you. So it means you should take, instead of you shall bring, it means the page 82. עד שתהא לקיחה והבאה כאחד, until the taking and bringing of the first fruit are performed by one person. Remember in the introduction we said we have to differentiate between the spirit of understanding the text and the literal, just word by word of the text. So here we understand from this text that the passage is not recited until the taking and bringing of the first fruits are performed by one person. And here is not the case. Says that you have the passages composed in pesukim, in verses, so we need to read them. What's the idea, the question, the objectable about reciting verses from the Torah? So we explain, Amar lei mishum de michzei keshikra, because it's appear like a falsehood. We issue a declaration before the Almighty God that is possibly untrue, as He might not on the ground. הרב משרשי, הברייד הרב חייא, אמר, דין מעטי להפקויים בתרומה המעשר. Maybe come to remove the fruits from the obligation or bring it to the truma and the tithes, if they are treated entirely as a first fruit. So for this reason, one does not recite the passage to ensure that that their unique status is maintained. So basically, and the Rambam said in Luchot Bikurim chapter 4, when one separates his first fruits and sends them to the temple with an agent, and the agent unfortunately passed away, even if the owner ultimately brought the fruits to the temple, he does not recite a passage of thanks, because if you go by the text itself, the verse states, and you shall take, which you shall bring, which demonstrates that only you, one who takes the fruit and bring it to the temple, recite a passage. So basically that's followed the Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, and that's basically the final halacha. And we have a lot of derivative from that. One of them is the idea of understanding that when it's come to interpretation of texts, many times we don't go by literal interpretation, but we go also many times by the spirit and the consensus among the rabbis, what the spirit of the text and what the text meant to convey to us.